Cool. Thanks everybody for tuning in to the Tavern Podcast.
Great name. Classic.
Inspired, right?
Yeah. No one will mistake it for anything else.
That's what I thought, Definitely not the Stone Tavern.
No, not those guys.
So we're here with John Ackerman, artist, musician, kind of Renaissance man, right?
Mm-hmm.
How would you describe yourself?
Yeah, that's certainly a description I've given myself before. Yeah. All the arts, but also engineering. Like I got an engineering degree, and I love tinkering with things and fixing things and perfecting things and imagining new things, and that's kind of all the things that like Da Vinci, right? Leonardo da Vinci. I was so close to saying DiCaprio. It's like, no way.
No, definitely not DiCaprio.
Not the same guy.
Yeah.
That's all the stuff he was into, like inventing and like his illustrations of things and like his observations of things, especially like the drawings that he did over hours of just sitting and looking at a thing.
Yeah.
It's like phenomenal. Like there's just so much vibrance in them. Yeah. And that's the kind of thing that I aim to do.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Nice. Yeah, man. So some of the stuff that I wanted to talk with you about, because you've been around for a while now. Like we met a year and a quarter ago, something like that. And it was like pretty immediately when we met that you started staying here, and we were doing a lot of this stuff together. We were doing a lot of like the Adobe work together, So that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was just like your relationship with working with Adobe, what that process was like for you, because for those of you who have been here and maybe don't know, right, you walk in and there are these two angels.
Yeah, I call them angels.
Yeah, angels sculpted into the walls, and that was John's work. That was, I have a picture on my phone of you working on it, of them like half done, and I think it was marked like November 29th of last year, something like that. So, yeah, I wanted to just have you describe that more, talk about the process, the relationship with the material and all of that.
Yeah, so it was October when we started, and I started doing a lot of the Adobe stuff, and I'd say it took me a while to figure out the medium and like what I could do with it, and like even how to make it. Like that took a little while just to, for you to tell me this. It's clay and straw and water and sand. It's this much proportion of each, and it took me like a day of mixing to figure out a good way to do it and like ratios and stuff, and then days after that to even then figure out like, in the morning it's cold, so I really have to like knead the clay for a long time and work the sand in, and it's probably gonna hurt a little bit because it's cold, and then all this kind of stuff. And then actually putting it on the walls, it became very like almost meditative, because I would just scoop up a certain amount, plop it in my hands, scoop it on the wall, sloop it around, and I just kept doing this thing over and over again. This like these motions, and it was very embodied. A lot of people think about meditation, they think about thinking and sitting and being still and not doing anything. But it can also be just when you're doing, but you can meditate anytime. It's just being mindful about what you're doing. And that doesn't even mean using your brain, it means being aware, being observant, being open to everything happening. And I started doing that room upstairs and started like playing with spirals and like different shapes and just seeing how things looked from far away and how things kind of played and interacted. And then on the one down here, the angels, it was Elsa actually who started it. She had just thrown a bunch of clumps on the wall.
Right.
And kind of had she laid like this base that I could work with. And then later that day, a couple hours later, I think I made a batch and brought it in, and and just started working it, and just kind of saw these forms taking shape, and saw that there were these people, these creatures, and just kind of worked with it. And whenever I saw something, just set that in my mind as like, okay, this is where that's going, and just shape things as I could to try to get them to resemble my mind's eye. And it's kind of this constant back and forth of like checking and doing and checking and doing and checking and doing. And it's a little different than when I'm like, say, drawing from life. Like it's similar where, like if I'm gonna draw you, I have my sketch pad, I'm drawing, and I look at you, and ideally it's about 50-50, where I'm going back and forth. And like when I'm jamming with people that I haven't played with before and I don't know who we're playing, that's a lot of listening and a lot of deciding based on what I know and what I hear, what I'm gonna put through. It's like this check and play and check and play and check and play. This kind of like game that's played between inner and outer. And so I just kept developing it further and further, taking into account my own abilities and the material and what I could do with it, and I could probably get that much thickness on the wall to stick, and anything more than that, it starts to get kind of sketchy. So I knew that I could do like a curve maybe that much. Then I can do long curves, and I can dig in a little bit, but the underlayers are pretty much hardened, so I can build up. That's pretty much it. Which is, it's more than drawing. Like drawing, I just have a two-dimensional plane to work with, and there's no curve I can put into it. But having that extra dimension of curvature available it just like opened up another dimension that I can play with.
Yeah, totally.
And that piece wouldn't mean much of anything if I just drew it.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't have the same kind of feeling.
Yeah.
Whereas that, because it's carved out of Adobe, and because it's on the wall and it's sitting above a piano and there's like this whole scene around it, and like really sets it into something significant. And it's even more than just like a painting or a picture that you draw, or even a piece of music or something that's less permanent. Like that's in the wall.
Yeah.
It's gonna be there for a while. Yeah.
Yep.
And other pieces of art are a bit more temporal in that it's made and you can choose to put it up, or you can choose to give it to someone, or you can throw it away, you can burn it, or you can just stuff it in a drawer, whatever.
Yeah.
But that is like it's there.
Yeah, definitely. And you feel like that, the experience of permanence with it, do you feel like that changed what you were bringing to your artistic process in that moment? Do you feel like that was changing what you were drawing on for inspiration? It was informing any of this?
Well, I remember Myron had just been here, and he said something about this turning into a castle.
Yeah.
So that thought was going through my mind. And yeah, that ideal of like making this a place of like majesty, like magnificence. I swear I speak English.
Yo.
But yeah, trying to make it into like a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Like that definitely like up-geared my mind in terms of what I should make. And the permanence aspect of it, there was definitely some like pushback, internal like criticism I was feeling about it, because it's like nudity. It's like this thing, and especially with Elsa, like this, like her thing, and that's probably why it came out so strongly. It's like these nude forms on the wall.
Yeah.
And some people get offended by that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like art, work of art, so much of it like the stuff that really is powerful and like transformative, it crashes through blocks of expectation or ideals or I mean it's like at a certain point there's only so many pretty things you can draw or paint or like take photos of. And at a certain point as an artist, at least in my experience, I started to feel like I was just like glazing over the surface of something. And it had this kind of nice polish and it like shined and it looked nice. But it was kind of just like this useless thing. It's just like this thing, just like a ghost, like with nothing underneath it. Right. And I realized that that's how I was internally. Like I was just trying to make this life be just this like glossy, happy, kind of shiny, like and it's like, and it's like the Instagram ideal to show people, like the glossiest, prettiest nights out, like your happy friends and your big smiles and this like gourmet food and great music and everything is like sleek. Yeah. But it's not reasonable. It's not like, it's not real. It's not even like, it's like a tiny percentage of the experience. And then all these people are scrolling through their feed of all these people doing these glitzy things, and it starts to feel like I should be doing this all the time. What's wrong with me? And there's this like divide, like literally this crevasse that's stuck between this ideal that's created and like life and how messy it is and how like boring it is and how fucking annoying it is and how just terrible it is. And so it takes a lot of, for me at least, takes a lot of courage to say, yes, this is real sometimes, but also there's all this other stuff that I want to share too. And I want to show people that it's great. Like all this other stuff is also great. And I love it just as much as this shiny orb. I love the dirt. I love slinging mud on the wall and shaping it into stuff. Like it's literally, it's dirty work. Like it's like the thing that you're supposed to be like, no, I don't do that. I keep my hands clean. But it's like the depths of the pain you can go to are equal to the amount of healing you can give a person or give yourself or give the world. And if you're not feeling that pain, then you're numb somewhere. And if you're numb somewhere and you're not experiencing everything, and it's a weak spot, it's a blind spot, it's like just something that you're ignoring. And it's just like, it's a spot for like some other piece of someone or something to sneak in and like become part of you and like part of your idea of yourself. Whereas if you really just look at everything you are, then you really know who you are and what you are and what your purpose is and what you're like after and what you are capable of now and what you want to be capable of later, and like it just starts to mesh so much more nicely. Nicely isn't a great word. It starts to mesh so much like more organically. And it's not always going to be the same. That's actually like a huge point. It's always changing. Like where you are now is always changing. Literally, physically, I move around, but also metaphorically, like I grow in time it's actually kind of funny. Meta is about time.
Mm-hmm.
Metaphor is about time, how things change over time. And like I'm like learning new things, and I'm expanding my abilities, and like all these things. And if I wasn't, I mean, I wouldn't be real. Like I would just, I don't know. I would just be like a gravestone.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's when you stop doing and stop learning. Is just it's when you're done. And I'm not done yet, so I'm gonna keep doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You talked about like the depth of pain felt and the amount of healing that you can give someone, right? And obviously this has been an underlying topic through a lot of our conversations, but let's talk more about that now. Let's, what do you think the relationship of art to healing is? Let's start there.
On a personal level, it is my healing. It's my healing work.
Mm-hmm.
It's what I do to heal. Because what it does is it takes what's inside and puts it outside for me to observe.
Mm-hmm.
So much of the spiritual path is about witness consciousness, which is the ability to simply perceive and not to say, this is good, this is bad, and just to watch and accept. And that place is very close to the place of unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
And unconditional love is, that's it, that's the utmost. I mean, that's what we all are. That's the space between everything. That's like the next level beyond pure witness consciousness. That's God presence. That's everything. And at the other end of that spectrum is the most painful part of your present experience. Whether it's physical pain somewhere in your body, whether it's emotional pain, something you're dealing with, whether it's spiritual pain, some doubt you have about your ability or the fruition of your mission. It's just whatever is the most difficult part of your life right now. That's the other end of this spectrum, from unconditional love down to the worst part of your life. And that's what hell is. Hell is this, like, the depths of poison and pain and worry and doubt and fear and disparity and all of these things. They're all part of human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're doing is connecting those two in this flow of like breath. It's not just the breath, but it's like the breath. And the breath is a way to like expand into both directions. And the thing with healing is that it's, if I could give it a definition, it would be that furthest down point of pain and the furthest out awareness, or of whatever it is, non-being, unconditional love, that they're intimately connected and that there's nothing on the route between the two that's a sticking point. That's like saying, no, don't go there. And it's just a pure line of communication. And so it's not always being this like unconditionally loving, accepting everything being all the time. And it's funny because I tried doing that for a while, and it's like, it's bullshit. It doesn't work. People start calling you out for it because they see that you're not being true to yourself.
Yeah.
You're not accepting this other piece of you.
Yeah.
That's like, no, man, I need something right now. Like, I can't help you at this moment. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, dude, I can't give you money. Like, I need this money to pay for my food. Mm-hmm. And it's like this it's like the animal instinct mm-hmm. of just like hunting and being hunted. Mm-hmm. But you really need both to be a full person. And the crazy thing is, the more open you are on either end, the more, it's not normal, you don't become more normal, but the more natural you become.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because normal, at least here in our society, is like this bit of it. It's like this kind of lower piece of the puzzle where the like blips up a little bit here and blips down a little bit here, but it's like this stuff. It's like survival. It's like get your house, get your food, get your money, you're good. Mm-hmm. Maybe find love, it might fall away. Maybe you might lose your house, your car, but you'll get it back. And this is like the range that we're supposed to be in and be comfortable in and be happy with, and that's like the dream. Mm-hmm. But it's normalized, which means literally it's put on a bell curve and it said this range is normal. Mm-hmm. Anything outside this range is dangerous. Mm-hmm. People outside this range are dangerous. Mm-hmm. They're either anxious, depressed, crazy, probably not crazy, they would say, psychologically unsound at the lower end of the spectrum. And at the top is like the kooks and the wackos and the crazy people and the people who say they're psychic and clairvoyant and can move things with their minds. And there's these two sets of people that are like pushed away from the normal, and like there's a boundary set, like don't do this, don't go here. And that's like, I still don't know what to do about that in terms of society. But the quote I always draw from when this kind of situation happens, when I don't know like how to actually change that, the fact of this thing, is Gandhi's quote of be the change you want to see in the world. Mm-hmm. So if there's something you recognize as being a point of pain, a point of blockage or separation or of like pushing away or numbness, if you recognize that within yourself, explore it. And making it into art, drawing it back to that, is so powerful because it's an outer representation that isn't changing unless you add to it, that you can look at. Because the problem with the mind thing and the thoughts is they're so fluid, mm-hmm. and that you can't grab them. Like they're just, the next one's there, and if you're trying to keep hold on this one, it's like the rest are just like flapping around all over the place. And so the powerful thing about writing and about drawing and anything where you make something is that it becomes something, it becomes a reflection that is set further into the material world so that you can stand back a bit and look at it. And I think music is almost like, it's kind of the opposite of that. It's like, especially doing like free stuff and like sound bath kind of stuff, and like trying to do like healing music where you're like intuiting things, mm-hmm. that is more like, it's not quite so much of the thought, it's more of like the feeling that's coming through and being turned into these sounds, like just like sounds are much more like ephemeral and much more similar to thoughts. Like they're very fluid, and you can't really grab onto music unless you record it. So maybe that's a way. This isn't like something I thought much about, but maybe that's a way of kind of doing that opposite thing, where instead of digging your thoughts out and putting them down, you're kind of taking something that's low and like kind of wild and contained, and bringing it up into freedom and non-containment. And then what I do here, what I've been doing, is it's kind of like this nexus of like, all right, I'm gonna take what's been taken out of somebody else and drawn out into the air, and I'm gonna let that filter down through me, and then do some sort of internal mixing. I don't know exactly what happens yet. And then I'm gonna draw it, make it into material.
Right.
And so it's kind of like we have, let's see, taking thoughts down and putting them into form, or taking form up and putting them into thought, and then taking that back around into the art world. It's like, then I need something to bring it up into thoughts and let that out, and then like bring that down into art or something like that. Just like continue this kind of like infinity spiral.
Right,
sort of
right.
thing.
You're thinking a lot about these different like almost like cycles of energetic change in a way, right?
Yeah.
Right. This idea of something coming from the source and coming through a person and being expressed in a certain way, and then you picking up on this expression and like kind of shifting the thing a little bit and like recycling.
Yeah.
In a way. Yeah, totally. Right. Yeah, so you were talking about like you were talking about this thing with music, and talking about music being like it's almost less fixed is kind of what I was getting from that you're talking about, that it's less fixed. So do you feel like the method of creating visual art, it doesn't have that same sort of like I don't know, connection? Because a lot of what you're talking about here is like there's this kind of connection to a primal nature, right?
Yeah.
It seems like this is a huge overarching theme in everything that you're describing, right? This thing about the bell curve and normalizing and trying to get outside of that, trying to, put these things together, have a full integrated sort of thing, So, yeah, I mean, do you find that the visual arts are less connected to that kind of thing? You feel like this is more something that happens for yourself in your own experience of it?
No, it's sort of, all right, so let's see. I was simplifying things a bit in saying it's like the painting is mostly thought into form, and the music is mostly form into art. Because there's a lot of music that takes a lot of thought and a lot of thinking and effort. And there's a lot of painting that is really just like the stuff I'm feeling and bringing out into the world. And so it's kind of like they're kind of both. They're kind of each both. But I think the thing is that the truth of it is that there's no disconnection from that source, from that primal place. And it's neither the high nor the low. And it's not even the middle in between. It's just all of it. And everything we do and everything we are and everything that is it. And the switch of it is, the switch that I turned at a certain point in my life was actually, it was just believing that and recognizing that. Before, it was like, there is a source, right? Like there is a creator, there is a God, but I'm not that. And maybe at a certain point I was connected to that like a long time ago, but not anymore. And even if that exists, I don't have anywhere near that sort of power. Like I'm tiny. Like I'm minuscule. I'm essentially powerless in terms of like universal forces and time, the amount of time we have on Earth, and like the size of Earth compared to the sun, compared to the galaxy, compared to the universe. It's like, no, we're like nothing. And that's spiritual materialism. That's this belief that we're separate from God. God is one thing, we're another thing. And even without the God part, that's just materialism. And that's what a lot of people run their lives in. That's like this normalized piece of human existence, is like the material stuff. Like get your material stuff good, set in order, and your life will be fine. But so there's materialism, spiritual materialism, and just spirituality, which is that everything is God and God is everything, and there's no words you can say that will describe it completely because it's infinite and endless, but it's also finite and measured, and it's happening right here. Like it's everything that is and is not, and it's like it starts getting into this like spiraling kind of conversation, because that's how it's all moving. Like the planets through the galaxy and the people on the planet and through moving through the galaxy, like everything is just cycling and spinning and rotating and moving and changing. And yet there's always something that's the same. There's always the center of the earth. There's always the center of the person. There's always the center of the sun, the center of the galaxy, the center of the universe, which we don't know what it is. But there's always that center point that's being spun around. And I think that center point is what a lot of people would refer to as the source. It's like the center of the sun, like the prime like position, or the center of the person, which everything comes from. And I think that actually is a valid point. And it's like everything else is like an emanation of that. And I think the spiritual work is in connecting those and removing any blockages, and like the phrase, God is the profane and the profound. And if you truly believe that, then you can accept, well, if you truly believe that and you accept God as this love force that doesn't have any desire for you to do anything painful or whatever. With these two, then you can believe that everything I'm experiencing is for me in some way. It's for my evolution. It's for my growth in some manner. Even if it seems like it's decay, even if it seems like it's going backwards on the path, there's no wrong step. Literally, of course, you can take a wrong step. You can step on the stair and the stair can break and you can fall and smack your head and die. I mean, it's possible, always.
Sure.
But like, it's not very likely. But even that step, like, who knows? 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 And there's this Taoist thing of that exact thing of who knows. I don't know what's right or wrong, good or bad. I'm just here. Like, I'm just experiencing it. And that's the thing that happens, is like you become not special. You become not like you don't have any special interests. You don't want things to go one way or the other. You're just cool. Breathing in now, breathing out now. Might not have another breath in, but oh, there it is. Interesting. Still doing the thing. Still in the body. Mind's kind of wandering. Spirit is just like wacky. Playing on Jupiter. And then it's like the whole life becomes art, and the whole life becomes the spiritual practice. And there's no separation. And this is like a really big thing for me because my Pisces midheaven. This is like, I just read this the other day. It was like someone with a Pisces midheaven, their career unfolds along with their spiritual path. And irrespective of other people's expectations or their own expectation of themselves. And that's huge. Like as soon as I opened up to these things in like 2019, I guess, like I felt like I finally started like actually learning. Not just sitting and remembering, but like being engaged fully in like the things I was doing. And feeling like, well, this isn't normal. Why am I doing this? And it was because of love. Like I literally had this heart-opening experience at one point in college where I was just so dead tired of my existence. Just so sick of plodding along, doing the homework, sitting in class, going to the gym, making food, getting beer, getting drunk, getting really sad, falling asleep, and doing it all over. It was just like that, just like monotonous, just like a shadow of myself. Like somebody else's puppet, like not even conscious of whoa, I'm in a body and I can do things with it, like of my own free will. And I read this book, The Four Agreements, which is all about so much of what I was just talking about. So much about like rewilding yourself and like becoming natural. And seeing yourself as love, and seeing yourself as loved, and loving yourself exactly the way you are, and then putting that love out into everything else and everyone else and everywhere. And when I read that, I just like melted and just like flowed back into myself. And it was magic, like literally, like God, like the best I've felt in my entire life. Just like totally accepting the way it is right now. Knowing that all I need to do is keep loving. Which is not easy. I found out very soon. It was like this peak, and then I just like, because I had all this inertia of like being down here, and then I had this like huge crest, and then all my friends and like everyone in the world expects me to be in this range, and they want me there because it's comfortable for them. And it's hard to explain what the hell I'm doing, like being this crazy person, because everyone else is doing this thing in this range. And as soon as you go beyond the bounds, as soon as you hop the fence, as soon as you break the law, you got people chasing you, telling you to stop doing that. And so that's like, then it became this high peak to like this low of like anger, like what the fuck, guys? Like I thought you were my friends. Like I just described this like amazing experience, and now you want me like back down here. So then I was like way down there in like this pain place, just like just completely not understanding. And I eventually, like, I kind of evened out a little bit, and I was still like going a bit beyond the edges, but not so much that it elicited like a big reaction or something like that. Like I just wasn't into that. So I kind of like got myself in this kind of range instead of this kind of range. And then I have had some peaks where I've gone like high, high, low, low, and just like experienced as much as I could. And usually those things happened when I was alone. Like the furthest away from humanity I could get is when I could be most natural and really fully experience everything. And now I'm kind of in this, man, I've been feeling like I'm like down, like decelerating, like getting back in this range of like, shit, like, oh man, this again. And it's like, it's inertia again. It's like, it's hard to pop out of. And I think comfortability has a lot to do with that. And like, because it's so tempting to get comfortable. Like, it just feels nice. You know, it's just like, it's cozy. Like, it feels like
it's a practice to stay outside of that.
Yeah.
Totally.
Because that's when you start oscillating a bit more and you start experiencing more. And also in that is compassion. Like scraping the bottom, the depths of the bottom, and like cutting your knuckles on the seafloor is like, that's when you start to be able to empathize with people who like die for oysters for their food and live a much less comfortable existence than you do. And then of course at the other end there's these people living like on clouds, like they just sit on cushions all day and get fed like the best immaculate food and just like pure water and like everything they desire at any moment is just fulfilled. And these are like the actual edges of the human experience. Like, well, I guess maybe not hunting for oysters, but like war, like, you know, like fighting for your existence and just being like given everything. And I don't know what's beyond those things. It's like there's nothing on either end. I imagine if I actually delved into either end, I could probably find more in either direction. Like if I just searched through all of like the horror literature, I could find something even more horrifying. Or all the literature about, I don't know, how to make your desires come true. Like, like just the craziest
Check
things.
out Marquis de Sade or something.
It's like lap of luxury kind of stuff.
Well, so do you think that there's one, you know, you've talked about a lot of different artistic mediums. Do you think that there's one of these mediums that stands out as being, as having a greater potential for maybe accessing some of like these boundaries of what you're describing, and then maybe has greater potential for like connecting them in some way?
For me, what's been working really well recently has been drawing and writing. One without the other doesn't do it. But doing both, it's like this is like a mind game. It's like one side wants to say the stuff and the other side wants to see the stuff. And when I do both of it, it's like something happens where I'm like complete, like centered in between the two. Whereas if I just write, I'm top heavy, or if I just draw, I'm top heavy. And yeah, I'm curious about the extension of that, which is, I guess, like movies. Like they have both text, you know, dialogue, sometimes narration, and illustration. I mean, there's obviously books and stories and stuff, but like the next dimension of that maybe would be movies, videos. even just of like another level of like talking about the two, maybe would be the next thing. And then what would get added into that would be music, which is like the score, which like keeps track of this triplicate interaction. And then you have the audience, it's like sharing it, and their reaction and their addition to it, their own thoughts and ideas and myths and legends that they all tie this into. And then I don't know what's next. I guess it's like the criticism and the applause. And it kind of splits. And then again, I guess maybe with those you can take them and write about them and draw about them. Just keep this whole thing going.
Yeah. And so I wanted to talk to you too about like, so we've been checking out different stones and stuff like this, right? And talking about the way that they feel and the kind of like energetic aspects of them, trying to understand more about like how they correlate to maybe parts of the body and stuff like that, you know. And then I was noticing like, right, because you've been coming to for the sound bath series and painting every week, which has been very cool to watch. And it struck me so much that the first time you did that, like doing a live painting to the music, you had this stone next to you, and I was looking at it like, you just drew the stone. You know, so I wanted to talk to you too about that process and that experience and what you think is going on there.
What it seems like is that I'm just taking in what's in my environment and passing it through my filter, which includes parameters like the colors of the paint I have available, the types of brushes, the kinds of brush strokes I'm familiar with and know will have certain results, and just putting it down. And I'm not thinking a whole lot, which is different than when I'm writing or when I'm drawing, like what I was describing earlier. What I do here is more just letting it through, all of it, which includes the stone sitting next to me and the people in the room and all the music and the room itself and like the temperature and how I'm feeling. All these things go into it. And it's a very intuitive practice in that it's totally feeling based and not at all thought based. And wild things happen that I did not expect to happen. Like the painting I did last week had me and you and Jim Yonda in it.
Mm-hmm.
Completely unintentionally.
Mm-hmm.
And I only saw it after the fact when watching the video.
Mm-hmm.
At least it was consciously unintentional. It must have been intentional on some level for me to put these shapes in, because that's what's in front of me.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And it's probably even like the practice of sitting down, looking at something, and representing it. That was just like part of the muscle memory coming through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And also there's this like, there's this piece of it that's just like, it just arises. Like I'll close my eyes for a bit and I'll wait to see if something comes up, and I'll see like a spiral. Like right now, actually, I see a spiral. It's like yellow in the middle. It's like a red cross, and it's like spiraling out in these like blues and greens. And that image, I think, is like, well, a lot of it is like a conglomeration of the things in the room. It's like the after image you see in your retinas.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's some element of it where they start like, those pieces start moving and like, I don't know, it's not like I'm consciously making it happen, but it's happening. Maybe it has to do with like the way I move my eyes or something, but I don't know, I haven't delved that far into that bit of it. But it is like this, I'm trying as much as possible to just reflect. And I know it's impossible to do so without putting in my own, like without it passing through my filters, I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, a camera is just a pure capture,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting in its own right. But what I'm doing is I'm adding something over that, or including something with that, which is my own artistic style.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something else too that I wanted to touch on. It's like, maybe it's the time aspect of it. Maybe it's because I'm trying to do it exactly in the moment, but there's like a lag between what's coming in right now and what I'm working on in the piece. And sometimes it's like, all right, I have to go over this form like a few more times to get it to be distinct enough.
Mm-hmm.
I can't just do what I'm listening to and put that in also. And I almost wonder what would happen if I did that, because the way I've been kind of establishing it is that I'll get some forms down,
Mm-hmm.
and make it sort of a scene, and then not paint over anything, like not wipe anything out. And I almost wonder about like having like a scroll that I just go down and make it like a continuous thing.
Yeah.
Or even if I just have this painting that I just paint and I just keep painting over it. Just like two other possibilities that I haven't gone into. But I have really been enjoying developing the forms and like seeing them take shape, and instead of always like constantly washing over it.
Right. But
Who knows? I might try. I might change up my style at some point, but for now I'm just gonna keep putting the forms down, developing them,
yeah.
seeing what happens.
Yeah, definitely. I know that was super interesting what you showed me when you came in today, and the photograph of the painting you made last week, and then you drawn in with like different colored pens and stuff like that, like more exact representations of the different forms, it was very cool, man. It was very cool to see like that, because to me it really offered a window into your process more, because I think you see the paintings, right, and there's a very distinct like type of stroke and type of flow that it has that's expressing something that to me feels more energetic. It's a little less like defined in the form, but then to have you go back and like draw them in a pretty obvious kind of way, no, there's actually, this person is here, this person's instrument is here, some of the instruments of the space are here, all these different things in the room, that was very, very interesting to see. It really offered a lot of insight. It offered a lot of insight into what you're talking about here, So, yeah, it was very cool. So, I mean, so it sounds like a lot of all of these things at the end of the day, right? Because I was asking about the stones and they all are very much working the same way, whether it's the stones, whether it's the music that's happening in the space while you're painting, the people, anything there. It's just like this thing that's kind of coming through, and you're trying to get to that conduit sort of thing, just letting whatever the energy of the moment is to just pass through and express itself.
Yeah. Yeah, and also I didn't really touch much on the stones, but I always bring 2 or 3, and each one definitely has a certain feeling.
Yeah.
And each one I just bring intuitively.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think about it. I just for some reason I look at that stone and think, oh, it'll be good tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And I can certainly feel where they activate my body.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a little, like tuning in. It's pretty subtle, but it's certainly there. And it's almost like each one I bring is something that the performer or performers need. And I'm just fulfilling that. And going back into the astrology bit, my Virgo sun, that like service, especially the Virgo and the Cancer together, it's like unconditional loving service. Like that's what I want to do. Like that's what I want my career to be about. Like if I can do that and like make a living, like that's just like the whole thing is complete. And kind of like it feels like bringing the stones that these people need, like the energy of, that's part of that mission. And this is where the thing comes in of, yes, there's that huge overarching unconditional love thing, and yes, there's that most painful part of our experience. And then there's this there can be a sort of hesitance to try to change that pain point, because there's so much good about it, and it's tempting to try to keep it where it is. And it's similar to that feeling of comfort and inertia, where it's just like, man, I've already made it this far, like can I just stop just like for a bit, like come on. But I think what's happening, and I think what I'm doing and what I feel called to do, is it's not like that whole thing is static and it's staying right here. The whole thing is moving up into greater and greater expansion, and taking along with it this tail of like heaviness. But the thing is, the more you pull up that heaviness and let it go flying out the side, the faster you're ascending. And that's growth. I mean, that's how plants grow, and that's how houses grow. You put things up. And that's how people grow in the corporate ladder. You go up and up and up. And that's how families grow. You go up in number. That's how everything grows. It's an increase. And there's like a really tricky fine line between accepting that little point of pain and worshiping it. Because if you start worshiping it, then it's that like worshiping is kind of this like this notion of like, this thing is perfect and it knows best. And if I follow it, then I'll be saved, or I'll be happy, or I'll be healed, or whatever it may be that you're searching for. And the same thing can happen at the other end of the spectrum. If you start worshiping this unconditional love, you start thinking it's something that's not you, something that will act without your volition, something that will just happen. And that's where a lot of people get stuck with, like, manifesting and praying and going to church and even, like, going to work every day and, like, trying to do the thing to get the thing to get the thing. When there's some piece of it of, like, oh, it's cool, I don't need to handle that. Like, this is perfect. Like, I can just worship this and sit back. Then it starts to fall apart. That forms a line, like a block, that forms like a separation of, like, this is outside of me, no need to worry. That's where numbness comes in. That's where stagnation happens. And so it's I believe the most fruitful way of being is to always upcycle the pain, but not cause any pain. If you're causing pain, you're pushing something down, either down someone else's throat, or down in your own body, or I don't know, like trying to stop a bubble from rising. Like it's just gonna split. And so you're constantly bringing this thing up. It's like you bring darkness up and then lightness down, and darkness up and lightness down. And the lightness is just the awareness of the darkness, and the darkness is just the heaviness or the shadow of the light. And it's moved on this wave of these, like, chemicals up moving up the spine, up and down the spine. And literally, like, there's waves of neurons, there's chemicals flowing. And when that starts to, like, backflow, like, that's when people get arrhythmia in their hearts and like start believing in lies and can't discern the truth and things like this. Just so common. And, like, having indigestion and, like, heartburn and, like, all these things are just, from a spiritual standpoint, they're all caused by, at some level, not doing that simple cycling.
You think that, like, any physical issue is a result of some sort of, like, spiritual stagnation in energetic process?
Sort of, yes. It's like, it's not, it is connected. Like, the standard belief in Western medicine is that the body can become stressed, and the best thing to do is to relieve that stress with some sort of drug or stretching or exercise or therapy or what have you, without ever really diving deeper into the source of that stress. And somewhere along the line, you might get a good therapist who says, okay, let's actually get to the root of this. And that's when the thing actually gets healed. It may not even be a therapist. You may just find a spiritual teacher. And you may just find that within yourself. And you may not even realize that you do it. I mean, so many people heal themselves without realizing. It's just that they have belief in being healed. It's like it's the placebo effect. And then that's when it happens. And that's this thing of mind over matter and of spirit over mind, where if you try to solve a problem in the body at the level of the body, it won't ever be solved. But if you try to find a solution at the mind level, there's a much better chance. And even if you go higher to the spirit level, then there's an even greater chance. And it usually has to do with some just a decision that a dream is reality, or an illusion is true, or something impossible is possible or is happening. And it causes this fear to rise to nothing. Well, at least this is at the level of thought. It's the way thoughts create problems. So then you have this fear response in the body. The body doesn't know what to do about it because there's nothing to be afraid of. But the body can't really tell the mind that, because the body is just feeling this fear response. And so it takes the spirit to say, whoa, wait a second, go back to that thought you had where you thought that, I don't know, you're gonna die from swallowing that little bit of toothpaste this morning. Really examine that. You've swallowed toothpaste before and you haven't died. And so it's like a meta mind. Like it's like the pure mind is just one direction, but then the spirit mind is like, that's the ability to look at the mind in its activity. And of course a body wound is like, it's pretty easy to fix. The source is usually very obvious. Like, you have a piece of glass in your finger, man. You just gotta take that piece out and Band-Aid it. You'll heal. Like, it's cool. But then you go up into like a spirit wound, and man, that shit is hard to fix. That's like a belief that you shouldn't exist. That's like I don't belong here. Like, something is massively wrong. Like, God made a mistake. Like, this is wrong. And for that, you need to go to like your whole life perspective, like the soul level. Mm-hmm. And you have to be able to see yourself with this view of, okay, what am I here for? What is my purpose? What is happening right now, and what caused that? What can I do? How can I grow? And that is, at least in my experience, the most difficult wound to heal. And honestly, that I'm still healing. Like, I still feel that, like, shit, why am I here right now? Sometimes. Mm-hmm. And it's just part of my evolution, is like moving through that core wound of like, I shouldn't be. And I mean, I know the solution, but for whatever reason, I won't let myself get to it yet. Or like, man, it's weird. It's like this very vague, like, oh man, it's like this like shimmering black cloud, like a veil that's just standing between me and the sun. And I just like won't let it go for whatever reason. Even though I know how good it would feel. It's almost like it's this just like worship of that dark pain part. That I worry, like, if I don't have that, then there won't be any more pain and I'll just stop, like, growing.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if I examine it, is ridiculous. Like, of course there's going to be more pain and struggle and challenge. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think is after the mountain? No more mountain? What are you just going to level them all and make everything flat? It's not reasonable.
Always another mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So how can people find out more about your work if they want to find out more about your work?
Well, you could come here every Thursday. I'll be here painting. Unless something strange happens and I can't. I have a website. My artist name is Crackle Ackerman, at least for now. It's CRACKALACKERMAN. I know it's a bit much, but it's what it is. And I'm on Instagram. I post a lot of my photos and paintings and artwork and stuff, poetry readings and music making, all that kind of stuff. And I've got some projects happening in the works. There's a poetry book that I keep saying is about to be published that may be about to be published, hopefully soon. And I've got this fairy tale I've been working on, which is actually like kind of what I was talking about. It's like I'm watching it unfold with my spiritual evolution. And it's really cool. And yeah, lots of cool stuff happening, coming out. Crackle Ackerman, Instagram, website. I got an Etsy shop. I have a Patreon that I have to fix up a little bit, but it's there. If you want to support an artist who could really use some support, check out any of those, even just a follow and just send me a message and a chat would be great. Anything. Yeah, I think that's about all.
Brilliant. Sounds good, man. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you, Peyton.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Soul, for the warmth.